Hello, I'm Renata with Renata's Garden, and welcome to another episode of Unearth Horticulture. Today's topic is all about scouting for pests, and no matter what type of gardener you are, interior or outdoor gardener, no matter what, you know the struggle that plant pests are. And that's because if there's a plant, a pest will find it. It will just hone in on that and get to work. As a grower, my job is to minimize pest damage and to keep track of what pests are in my crops. And so today I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks on what you need to look for when scouting for pests in your garden or interior plant collection. So since today's topic is about pests, I thought I'd walk you through the greenhouse a little bit so you can see how I scout. First, when you start to scout, you need to think about when you're going to scout and doing it regularly. And the first thing you do is take the big bird's eye view look at your plants. With my tropicals, I like to stand here and look and kind of see, do I see any discoloration, wilting, growth stunting? I spend a lot of time in here tagging, pinching, watering, doing different things. And so I have a pretty good handle on this small of a growing space, what's going on in the greenhouse with pests. But for you, if you are keeping an interior plant collection, a house plant collection, or if you have an outdoor garden, you might need to set up a routine where indoors you check your plants, you scout your plants for pests every week when you check for water. Or when you're outdoors taking a stroll, maybe harvesting fruit or watering outdoors, you want to check for pests at the same time. It's just something to keep in the back of your mind to help you keep those pests under control before they get out of control. So I have an example plant here, and then we're going to look at this, and I'm going to show you an example of how I would scout for pests on this plant. First, you look at the overall plant and you look for discolorations and feeding damage. And on this plant, it does have some variegation, and the way you know that that's not a pest problem is you look at the overall plant. Does it have the same kind of patterns throughout the plant? And if so, then you're good to go. A lot of things can be just physical damage. Like right here, I have a brown little spot on the leaf, and that's on the new tender growth, and I know that that's likely physical damage from shipping or traveling or repotting. After you look at the top of the plant and it looks healthy overall, the next thing you need to do is look at the undersides of the leaves. And the reason you look at the undersides is because sucking pests that are the most common with interior or tropical plants, they like to hang out near the mid-rib of the leaf because that's where most of the sugars are transported through to the rest of the leaf. And so they like to hang out and just be lazy boys down there. And it's well protected from the environment around them. And, it's a nice place to live. Think about where you would like to live if you were an insect, and then check there when you're scouting. The next trouble spot you want to check is the new growth. And that's just because it's the most tender and it's easy to munch into for any type of pest. So check the new growth for any kind of pests lurking there. The hardest pest to scout for is spider mites, and that's because they're so small and they multiply really quickly. In about 3 to 4 days, their eggs hatch and they can reproduce. So it's really hard to get them under control once they've started. Let's take a look at a mite infestation I'm dealing with in my interior. All right, so we're inside here in my sunroom, and I have all my interior plants here, and I've been struggling with mites for a little bit on this particular plant, and it's my polyalocasia. And once you get mites on a plant, especially one with crinkly leaves, it's kind of hard to get rid of them because when you spray like neem oil or whatever you're doing as a treatment for your plant, it's hard to get into the nooks and crannies on all surface areas of the leaf. So it's been a constant battle, especially with spider mites, because you have to treat every 3 to 4 days. But I'm going to show you up close here what that mite infestation looks like. Here is my alocasia polyplant. I'm going to try to get you better lighting so you can see here what I'm seeing. This leaf is the worst. Mite damage first appears as brown/yellow speckling on the leaves. And that can be a sign of other things like sun damage, or it can also look kind of like just normal variegation, leaf patterning, you know. But it's pretty clear, and if you've seen it enough times like me in the greenhouse, you know what that doomsday damage, plant damage means. Then the next thing is, if it gets bad enough, you start seeing webbing on the leaves. And let's see if I can get it with a background so you can see the webbing on this leaf, because it's pretty crazy. Yeah, here, see those webs kind of connecting leaf lobe to lobe there? That's a sign that you've got a pretty bad infestation. So we've been battling mites on this plant for the last 6 months. And I think it's time for this guy to retire. I mean, eventually you get to the point where it's so bad, and if every leaf is infested, then it's time for it to go. It's a magnet plant for mites. And it's sad, I know, but sometimes you have to sacrifice one for the good of all. So that was really dark for plant care. But yeah, spider mites, they're really a pain to deal with. As far as scouting goes in your outdoor gardens or pots, it's really important that you just scout every time you water. You know, it's a good basic way to keep track of what's going on in your garden without too much thought and effort. Again, take a step back and look at your plants. Do you see any glaring issues from far away? Then take a closer look at 1 to 2 plants dispersed in your garden. You don't need to check them all every time, but it helps you to kind of get a broad view of what's going on. You can check for munchers like caterpillars and grasshoppers, which are a little bit more common outdoors. But also checking for mites is always important, especially as it gets warmer into the summer. If you have any questions when you get to the point of like identifying damage or identifying a pest, you can always reach out to your local horticulture agent, or you can reach out to me. I'm sure we'll both be happy to answer questions about pests in your garden. So that's all I have for this episode. If you have any questions, again, reach out. Until next time, you've been watching Unearth Horticulture.